Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Ritter, and welcome to the Summit Spotlight. Today, I have our superintendent, Roy Crawford. Welcome, Roy.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a little bit of a progress report today around our strategic plan. We adopted this, a year ago?
Actually, it was officially adopted even maybe 9 months ago, actually.
Yeah. So we're super pumped because this strategic plan is our guiding light and we are on task. So we're excited to talk to everyone about what's happening with our task forces and how we're moving forward. And just a note, we have 3 more fabulous months with Roy and we're so excited. And then when our new superintendent comes on in July, we're going to continue the work. So it will be full speed ahead with our 5-year strategic plan. And so I think it's very important that people know that, as we change the guard, we're going to continue to do the good work. So I wanted to put that out there, but share, please, about what's going on with our task forces.
Well, just a little caveat. Last week, I had the pleasure of presenting the same information to the Summit Foundation. They asked if I would come to a foundation meeting and give them an update. And tomorrow I do the same thing. Today is the 23rd?
Yep.
And so tomorrow, the 24th, I do the same thing with the school board. So this is really timely. But there are 3 main pillars of our strategic plan. The first is the student success pillar. And that task, and by the way, the role of the task force is to discuss the key components of the strategic plan and make recommendations on how we then operationalize that strategic plan. And so the Student Success Task Force has met, and I'm reading from my notes here just because a lot of information, has met 3 times, once remote, 2 in person. And one of the highlights of one of their meetings was they had a panel of 9 seniors from Summit High School share their experiences and reflection of their pathways, the course offerings, their aspirations, what their next steps are in their life with that task force. And it was a really powerful experience. I wasn't part of it, but I know that the people who left that, it was so valuable for them to hear from our seniors. And for the majority of those students, they felt really good about their educational experience. However, they had great insights into how we could improve that, how it informs then our goals for that strategic plan and so on. That task force, by the way, also was our most applied for task force. One of our goals after we did the application process for the 3 task forces was to have significant student representation, significant parent and community representation, and also school representation. But we wanted it to be balanced. We didn't want it necessarily to be school driven. And that was our most applied for task force, which was interesting. And the Student Success Task Force, it really has 3 subcategories as well. One is the academic component and strong academic programs and curriculum. The second one is social emotional learning and social emotional development. And the third is pathways and how our students access their dreams and aspirations. So anyway, they've met 3 times and they're cranking away. A second critical task force is the Family and Community Partnership Task Force, which you, by the way, lead.
I do.
Yep.
Ish.
And I don't know if you want to do the summary of that.
Sure.
But if you want to do that, that would be great.
Well, we are really excited. So the Family and Community Partnership Task Force was the 3rd to get started. So we've just had 1 meeting, and actually tomorrow night will be our 2nd meeting. So it was really great. We had 18 folks from the community at the meeting, and we really started just to uncover where people were from the past, which I think is a really amazing way to start something, which is, what are your perceptions? Where do you think we were? And how can we positively move forward? And so that's really what came out of that meeting. And more than anything, people want communication. They want engagement with all community members. And we're really looking at that. Just even as my role, within my role as the communications director, I am hyper focused on engaging all of our families because it is very important for us to unify as a community. And so we're really working hard to uncover some of the deficits and find ways to work together so that we can all be on the same playing field. And so that's really what came out of that. And so our next meeting is tomorrow, and I'll have more updates, but we are fresh and new with our process, and that's by design, due to the fact that the other two groups, and you'll talk about the third task force, we needed people to get started to help, really start to inform the work that we are going to do, because this, even though the three task forces meet separately, the work, one informs the other, and it all will come together to just elevate the district and give the students and families the best experience.
Yep. Well, and the third pillar is our equity pillar, and creating equitable systems. And the equity task force was actually the first task force to meet back before the holiday, back in December. And so they are actually wrapping up their work, or have wrapped up the first phase of it after six meetings. And in the strategic plan, the three goals for equity and creating equitable systems: first is hiring equity. The second is equity literacy, both for students, staff, and community. And then the last is continuous improvement. And the recommendation, I'm just going to read a couple of those recommendations that have come out of that. We will be publishing those in detail at a later time, but just to give an idea of what those look like. So under the hiring equity, strive for a balanced staff demographic that mirrors our student population and culture. A second, connect with community who lease, rent housing, or like to be a host family for educators, to generate a form of director database, etc. For partnerships in housing, and so that we can bring in people who match our student demographics and so on. So those are two examples. An example of equity literacy: create a common definition of equity and community stakeholder input. Parents said, for example, we have an equity policy. And when we talk about equity, and I'm probably doing it right now, they said when we talk about equity, when they read the policy, etc., they don't really understand the language. The words mean different things to different people, and maybe aren't written as a lay person would understand it. Okay, so to create a common, easy to understand definition of equity that resonates with the entire community, and as an example. And the third is continuous improvement in equity, and probably one of the critical recommendations is restate the equity policy with more accessible language that will allow SSD to re-engage the community and build a common understanding of the equity policy. And that's a critical piece, because last year at this time, that was a really contentious policy that was passed. It created a lot of energy in the community. And so I was surprised to see the Equity Task Force come out with a recommendation to revisit that and to think about it in a way that engages the entire community and not just segments of the community.
I think that's brilliant, because I actually was having a conversation right before we came to have this conversation, which is people still don't know necessarily what equity means. It means something different to different people, and the definition that we're working from is that every child has their needs met. That's what equity is for our school district, so that our students are able to have the same access to all of our resources. And so we could have more conversations as we go on just about that, because it's a highly charged conversation. And my feeling is that is great that we're awakening and we want to have that conversation, and it also is really just about meeting the needs of our students.
Well, when you say that, I don't think, again, we have a diverse group of people in the equity committee. I don't think anybody would debate that. When I quote, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, he defines equity as every student being an authentic member of the community. I think we could probably agree to that, okay, like what you just said. But the language that we use sometimes, the words that we use sometimes, can really muddle the conversation. The last thing I would say about the work right now, we've talked about the 3 so-called pillars of the strategic plan. Each of those pillars also has what we have called an implementation team that would really operationalize those recommendations. And those are all of our school employees, the principals, the assistant principals, our instructional specialists, the directors, the chiefs, the superintendent are all on those implementation teams to actually do the work then in terms of the policies or the curriculum development or the HR strategies, et cetera. And I would also, the last thing I would say about it is, even though we talk about them in kind of the 3 pillars, we don't work within those pillars. The work is also lateral because when we talk about curriculum, there's a huge equity component. When we talk about community engagement, there's a huge equity component. When we talk about kids being successful, social emotionally a successful example, there's a parent community piece to that. So it's not just vertical; it's horizontal as well in terms of aligning them across at the same time. So it's a major piece of work, but it is cranking. It's cranking.
It is.
And to go back to what you said about me having 3 months and a new superintendent coming in, the board and I are really invested in having that transition be as seamless as possible. And the strategic plan is the core of that seamlessness, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That's the common piece that drives us from leadership to teachers to community to a new superintendent, and to make that a seamless transition.
Well, you're great, and we are so thrilled that you've been leading us in this direction. We are hyper focused on our strategic plan and the success of our students and the greater community and our staff. Like, we're just so thrilled. We're just in a really good spot, and so we're just really excited to share this with all of you. And the strategic plan website will have a refresh, and so we'll have this progress report so that everyone can start to track what we're doing. And some folks would still like to get involved. Getting involved at your school level with your PTA, your PTSO, the DAC, the SAC, get involved at the school level, because that is where a lot of this implementation will take place. So we want everyone to get involved. It's really important. And so thanks for coming and sharing, because we're in a good spot.
My pleasure. Glad to be anytime. You know that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Yep, you too.
Bye.